The boy who left school and built Dunkin'. Today, Dunkin' is one of the most famous coffee and donut names in America. Millions of people recognize its stores. But the man who started it did not come from wealth. He did not finish high school. In fact, William Rosenberg left school after the 8th grade. And his journey began during one of the hardest periods in American history, the Great Depression. A childhood without much money. William Rosenberg was born on June 10, 1916, in Dorchester, a working-class neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. His family lived modestly. When the Great Depression hit America, life became difficult for millions of families, including the Rosenbergs. William couldn't simply concentrate on school and think about college. His family needed money. So while other children were sitting in classrooms, William began learning about life through work. He started working when he was only about 12 years old, delivering orders for a small grocery store. He also delivered milk using a horse-drawn cart. Later, he became a telegram delivery boy for Western Union. Eventually, William left school in the 8th grade and began working full-time to help his family. He was barely a teenager. No diploma. No college education. No rich family supporting him. But he was learning something that would eventually become extremely valuable. How customers think. The boy who learned to sell. William didn't look at his small jobs as meaningless work. He watched people. He learned what they wanted. He learned how to talk to customers. And he learned that if you could understand what people needed, you could create an opportunity. There is a remarkable story from his teenage years. On a very hot day, William and some friends took a car to a crowded racetrack. They removed the back seat and put a huge block of ice inside the car. Then William sold pieces of ice to the hot spectators. According to Dunkin's historical account, he returned home that night with $171, an enormous amount of money during the Depression. He was already thinking like an entrepreneur. Find a need. Find the customer. Then provide the solution. From delivery boy to manager. William eventually went into the ice cream business. He worked for a New England ice cream company, beginning in delivery and sales. He was good at finding customers and increasing business. By only 21 years old, Rosenberg had risen to a national sales management position. Think about that. The boy who had left school in the 8th grade was now managing business operations while still a very young man. But Dunkin still did not exist. There were more struggles and more lessons ahead. World War II changed his life again. During World War II, Rosenberg worked at the Hingham shipyard in Massachusetts, helping with the wartime shipbuilding effort. When the war ended, millions of American workers were returning to factories and construction sites. William noticed something. Workers needed food. But many factories didn't have convenient restaurants nearby. That gave him an idea. He took about $1,500 he had accumulated in war bonds and borrowed another $1,000 from relatives. With that money, he started a business called Industrial Luncheon Service. The business before Dunkin. William began bringing food directly to workers. His vehicles carried sandwiches, pastries, coffee and other food to factories and construction sites. He even adapted trucks so their sides could open and display the food. They were an early version of the food trucks we see everywhere today. The business grew rapidly. By 1949, Industrial Luncheon Service had close to 200 trucks, along with factory cafeterias and vending operations. But then William noticed something that would change his life. He studied what his customers were buying. Sandwiches were selling. Other foods were selling. But two products stood above everything else. Coffee and donuts. Nearly 40% of his company's sales were coming from coffee and donuts. William paid attention. Instead of saying, "We're already successful. Why change anything?" he asked a different question. What if I built an entire business around what customers already love? And that question became Dunkin. The first store wasn't called Dunkin. In 1948, at age 32, William Rosenberg opened a coffee and donut shop in Quincy, Massachusetts. But there was something surprising about it. The store was not called Dunkin Donuts. Its original name was Open Kettle. William wanted to offer good coffee and fresh donuts quickly and conveniently. At the time, many donut stores offered only a few varieties. Rosenberg wanted much more choice. He eventually promoted 52 varieties of donuts, one for every week of the year. But William believed that the name Open Kettle wasn't strong enough. 2 years later, in 1950, the store received the name that would make history: Dunkin Donuts. The idea behind the name was beautifully simple. People liked to dunk their donuts into their coffee. That simple image became a brand people could remember. He didn't stop at one store. William could have remained the owner of a few successful donut shops. Instead, he saw another opportunity. He realized that other people could operate Dunkin' stores if he gave them the system, products, and brand. This was franchising. In 1955, the first Dunkin' Donuts franchise opened in Worcester, Massachusetts. More locations followed. Rosenberg became such a believer in franchising that he helped establish the International Franchise Association in 1960, an organization created to support and improve the growing franchise industry. From an 8th grade dropout to thousands of stores, the business kept growing. William eventually handed day-to-day leadership of Dunkin' Donuts to his son Robert in 1963, although he remained involved with the company. And the little coffee and donut idea from Massachusetts continued spreading. By the year 2000, Rosenberg lived to see the 5,000th Dunkin' Donuts store open, this one in Bali, Indonesia. Imagine that journey. A boy who began delivering grocery orders at 12. A teenager delivering milk and telegrams. A child who left school after 8th grade during the Great Depression. A young man selling ice. A delivery worker. An ice cream salesman. A man driving food to factory workers. And finally, the founder of one of America's most recognizable food brands. His success was not really about donuts. The most important part of William Rosenberg's story isn't the donut. It is what he learned from struggle. Because he had worked with ordinary customers since childhood, he understood something many businessmen forget. Watch what people actually buy. His factory workers told him what his next business should be without ever saying a word. They simply kept buying coffee and donuts. William noticed. And he acted. That was his gift. He didn't have a university education. He didn't begin with millions of dollars. He began with work experience, observation, determination, and the courage to take a risk. William Rosenberg's life reminds us that sometimes hardship forces a person to grow up earlier than expected. Leaving school after 8th grade could have closed doors for him. Instead, Rosenberg kept learning outside the classroom. Every delivery taught him something. Every customer taught him something. Every job taught him something. And eventually those lessons came together in one simple idea. Good coffee. Fresh donuts. Fast service. Give customers what they want. That simple idea became Dunkin' Donuts. So the next time you see someone carrying that familiar cup of coffee, remember the boy behind it. A boy who left school because his family needed help. And spent the rest of his life proving that where you begin does not always determine where you finish. William Rosenberg, the boy who left school and built Dunkin'.